I think most of us know um, Dr. Padovan, although I'm sure he doesn't want me to call him that. I'm sure he just wants me to call him Julio. So telepathically, I'll just call. I know. I got your thought. So just a quick, for those of you who do, still, he is a professor of the Department of Chemistry, your college, and a full-time researcher at Rockefeller University in New York City. He holds several academic degrees and is a lecturer for both physical sciences and the Spiritist doctrine. Introduced to Spiritism at the age of 15, Julio dedicates his time, thank you, to translating Spiritist books from Portuguese and French into English. He's particularly interested in studying and explaining the solid logical foundation upon which the Spiritist concepts are built. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to take up any more time because this topic, this lecture has been much anticipated. And as we can see, much has been done to inhibit, if I can use that word, from happening. So all the more for us to appreciate this moment that we're here together. The uncertainties of current times as addressed by Spiritism. Julio, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters from the greater spirituality. I hope you can all hear me well, right? And this is the topic of our lecture today, the uncertainties of current times as addressed by Spiritism. And one of the things that we need to do is just set up a few rules for us, kind of commandments, so that we don't get derailed very quickly. We've seen already that we have already experienced some malfunctions today, so let us not add to it. So one of the things is to talk about the objectives of this particular lecture. And our idea here is not to give you a list of all the problems that we have, because that would be just a very negative connotation or a very negative exercise. The idea is for us to see already what is out there and see what we can do as Spiritists to improve that. The other thing is the scope of the lecture. And this is exactly what I just said, is this positivism. The idea is to find solutions. And if we cannot find solutions, at least try to mitigate the problems. The other thing I want to convey is that this is a lecture in Spiritism. This is a Spiritist center. There are other philosophies out there. There are other ways of thinking as well. We respect them. But here in the Spiritist Center, we have to talk about Spiritism. This is why I was so picky about adding to the title, as addressed by Spiritism, so that if someone has another idea from another philosophical principle or from another religious principle, or even from one's own principles, they are valid. Yes, they are. If they work for that individual, good, very good, actually. But here we have to discuss things based on Spiritism, which means that these are not my personal opinions. These are things, these are concepts, items that we get from the books. All right. Now, if there is in any way an opinion of mine, I will make sure to say it explicitly. This is my opinion, or this is the way I think. Other than that, everything is in the books of the codification, the books by André Luiz, by Emmanuel, by Rabindranath Tagore, by Joanna de Angelis, you name it, right? So all the books that we know that are classics for us and that we respect very much. And here I will just talk about the structure of the lecture, and it's very simple, actually. So the uncertainties of current times as addressed by Spiritism is divided into coming from the great beyond, physical surroundings, preparing for life in the physical realm, or just the physical surroundings as well, life in the physical realm, and eventually preparing for life in the spiritual realm. So I divided the questions that you provided to me into these categories. Could I have done it in a different way? Of course, a classification system is always a biased system, but it really doesn't matter as long as we addressed all the questions. I apologize in advance. If you don't see your question there, you don't have to say, oh, that was mine and it was not there. Okay. In some cases, some questions were very similar, so I just grouped them together. Also, if I reordered or if I rewrote part of your question, don't worry about, because I remove sometimes things like, please explain or comment on this, because this is exactly what we are doing here today. And this is the gist of the lecture. Okay, you're going to see a lot of text. Don't worry about the text. It's going to be there for a long time. You'll have plenty of time to read it. But they're all from the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Gospel, the Testament, the New Testament. And we also have passages from the Book of Hope, O Livro da Esperança, which unfortunately is not yet translated into English. Right? So the idea here is this. So Nicodemus approaches Jesus and is talking about reincarnation. He doesn't understand why a man can actually go back into a mother's womb. And Jesus is saying what is from the flesh remains in the flesh, but is from, or what is of the spirit remains related to the spirit. The idea here was the introduction of the concept of reincarnation. Without the concept of reincarnation, our discussion today has no meaning. We need the concept of reincarnation, which is why if we are outside the Spiritist context, and if we are in philosophical that embrace some form of reincarnatory process, we won't be able to address the questions in the way that we are going to do today. So that's it. Now, the other part is it's a little gloomy. It's a little kind of a sad in a way, because we have these two passages here related to the individuals that were going to the baptismal place, and then John and Luke were saying to them, listen, why are you here? You never pay attention to the principles. You never follow anything. Having the baptismal water will not help you. You are basically just being baptized, a pro forma baptism. Is you have to be baptized of the Spirit. You have to employ your efforts to improve yourself, to construct a better society. And this here is not, what I want to convey here is not as dramatic as you see from these two passages from the Testament, but the idea that we must, in every one of these questions that we are going to address, that we are the ones who must work very hard to improve things. It's not the lecture that is going to help you. It is not Spiritism that is going to help you. It's not praying that is going to help you. All of these things help. But what is really going to be a transformation is effort. When we put the effort to change ourselves, one iota at a time, one tiny little step, every single day, or even every week, or even every month if it's very difficult for us. It doesn't matter. We all go at our own steps. Okay? And this is the gist of it. Now, this part, not so negative as it can come out from these two passages. So today I want to introduce something to you. I want to introduce myself. You don't know me. I am that which loves. I am that which likes. I am that which remembers the fond memories of days gone by, of beautiful summer days or beautiful winter days. I am the one that retains everything that is good and even the things that are sad. I'm also the one who cries. I'm the one who hurts. I'm the one who suffers. I am the one who talks, who interacts, who discusses. And I'm also the one who hates. I am the one who dislikes. I am the one who envies. And I'm the one who may envy you so much that I will not cease until I find your unconditional destruction. I am all that. You know me because you are also like me. And I am quintessential. To borrow the words from Dante Alighieri's, the third canto of Inferno, dinanzi a me non mi fu così creata, se non eterna, e io eterna duro. Before me there was nothing that was created which was not eternal, and I endure forever. I am immortal. I have no end. I laugh because I live outside the scope of time. To me, time is a predator without teeth, because I will not only count the days to the end of time, not the end of times, but the end of time itself, but I will also outlive it. I am what is quintessential. I am that which was put together by my Creator over there. When it put together the creation, I am here. I am the daughter of the intelligence principle. I came from it, and I am called essence. The Greeks admire me so much, they created a word for me, pempousia, the one that has no further origin, that cannot go further back. The first one, the primordial, the most primitive, in the sense of chronology, of time, of history. Not primitive in the sense of not elegant or not intelligent. I am the essence. I am the essence. I don't have essence. I am it. Nothing more. It is here that I laugh, that I cry, that I engineer someone's demise, that I hate, that I envy, that I remember good things, bad things. This is what does all of these things. But then, very much like myself, who was put together by the breath of my Creator, I also create. And when I approach the universal fluid, when I approach the universal principle, the material principle, I too create something. I create a body for myself. I, in the same way that my Creator willed me into existence, I too will my own body into existence by looking straight into the material principle, very much as if I'm looking at a mirror. When I look at a mirror, I see my image in the mirror. So I, the essence, I look at the mirror of the creation, which we call the material principle, the universal fluid. And when I do that, I will into existence a material body for myself. And together, the one that thinks, the one that remembers, the one that hurts, the one that cries, the one that laughs, the one that is happy, the one that is sad, with a means to improve myself, my material body. These is what we call the spirit. I am an essence, but Julio the spirit is its essence and a material body. Notice that I do not have an essence. I am that essence. And this is very important. And it is with this combination, what my Creator created for me, willed into existence. I did not exist. It was my Creator that brought forth my existence, that brought me forth. So it's this plus what I, myself, as imperfect as I am, put together, in other words, willed into existence, my material body. These two is what we call the spirit. But there is one difference. When my Creator willed me into existence, I was simple and ignorant, because my Creator wanted me to be the craftsman of my own perfection. My Creator wanted me to reach plenitude in my own time, by my own means, in my own way. My Creator is perfect. I am not. So I am perfect in my simplicity. I am perfect in my complete ignorance. Ignorance here in the sense of not knowing anything at the beginning. But when I create, when I will into existence my material body, that material body can only be as good as what I am or I represent. In the same way that if I look at myself in a mirror, my image cannot be better than what I am. No matter how much plastic surgery, no matter how makeup, my mirror is going to tell me that my image is going to be a faithful reproduction of what I am. Here, we are not talking about just a specular mirror image. Here, we are talking about everything. So if this essence, if this that represents me is sad, it's going to be a sad material body. If this essence is vile, that material body cannot be beautiful. Like our Master Jesus said, it's through the fruits that you know, that you recognize the tree. No tree that is good can produce bad fruits, and no bad trees can produce good fruits. Same thing here. So whatever I will into existence by looking at the mirror called the universal fluid, it's a material representation of what I am. If I am vile, it's going to be a vile material body, and so on and so forth. So it means that as I develop myself using that body, as I become better, as I become more understanding, more caring, that material body is beautified. Not physically speaking, but morally speaking, intellectually speaking. But I am greedy too. And at this moment in my life, in my journey towards plenitude, I am still so ignorant that sometimes I have to come down all the way to this level that we are now, the physical level. So instead of taking just one portion of the material part of the creation, I will over another body. And then I have two material bodies. Quite confusing for us, right? Because one is more ethereal than the other. So we would call this material body, and this material body, physical body. This, then, is what we call the spiritual body, the perispirit. But then what we call the other one, the one that we are using right now to watch this lecture. Our brothers and sisters over there, they don't have that third one, not now. Those are what? They belong, they pertain, they are here only in the physical realm. And these are our physical bodies, our physicalities. When we are here reincarnated, we have a physical body. When we don't, when we are no longer reincarnated, when this physical body dies, which is the only thing that dies, we go back and we have just the spiritual body, but we never cease to be the essence. It is there, in the essence, that lies my memories, my likes, my dislikes, everything that I am. This is the true organization or model of our beliefs. And interestingly, we call the spiritual realm a mixture of the material only and the quintessential, non-material, non-physical. And this place where we are right now, the physical realm, is only occupied by our physical bodies when we do have them. When we do not have a physical body, we exist solely in the spiritual realm. We cannot do things here in the physical realm unless we ask for assistance from one of the reincarnated people, reincarnated beings. So our brothers and sisters over there, when they need something from this realm, they have to go through us. All of this is important for us to understand the questions that we are now going to address. I forgot to mention that as we go through the questions from now on, you can stop me and ask me questions that are related to the questions that we are using or that we are addressing at that moment. Okay? So let us start with our first set. I put some of them I grouped, and I even made it more general. Okay? The person that actually asked this question, I hope you don't feel insulted, asked specifically about the last one that happened. And I decided, no, I mean, the answer that I can give you is actually valid for any form of massacre, any form or any mass shooting, not just the last one. So let us start looking at this. Is such a discarnation process deliberate for those victims? In other words, one involving murder or assassination. Here, what we have is, of course, someone trying to make probably amends with the whole situation, trying to make sense of this whole situation. But let us remember one thing. The Father is always compassionate, is always loving. It is no longer the Father of Moses, the choleric God, because we have evolved from that time. We can now understand this a little better. And Jesus himself already brought this idea to us. If our Father is good, if God is good, how is it possible that God would will such a disastrous death, such an aggressive death to individuals here on earth? There is no deliberation. There is no determinism. There is no forced death. Then you might say, but why did it happen? I heard in the news, I saw this, I was present, I lost someone. It did, because we are in this process, in this life, creating our free will. Nobody has free will. There is no supermarket shelf you can go to and say, oh, okay, it's $10 for a free will, I'll just get that package. There is no such a thing. We are developing it as we develop our responsibility and our intelligence. So some individuals, for many reasons, that can go all the way from biology, psychology, psychiatry, and sometimes just pure evil, because they do exist. We know the story of Gregory, right? So all of these things can be a part of the equation. We don't know. What we know is the pain that we feel. The pain that we feel for those who lost loved ones, or even for ourselves when we do lose loved ones. But there is no determinism. And that brings us to the second one. Is this occurrence part of those victims' reincarnation plan? If there is one thing I hope God will allow me to do on this earth, is to destroy once and for all, if I can put all my energy into it, this concept, destroy this concept of a plan. This is one of the largest disservices that we have done, and an insult to André Luiz, because this comes particularly from the books of André Luiz, which were misinterpreted. When André Luiz discusses the reincarnatory plans, when he talks about the ministry of reincarnation in his books, many of them, they discuss that. What André Luiz is trying to say to us is that we are going to sketch something. And our mentors over there, when we are in the spiritual realm, are going to say, no, you're being too greedy here. You are going to fail if you go through all of these. It's like when you go to college and you go to a career counselor. You're going to take 20 courses in one semester. The counselor is going to say to you, no, you're not going to be able to finish any one of those. But the counselor cannot say to you, no, you won't do it. The same way that the reincarnatory committee will not say that to us. They will advise, they will counsel us. The plan is exactly that. It's a sketch. It's a sketch. When we think of a plan in the spiritual realm, this is not a house plan, an apartment plan, a building plan, where the engineer cannot deviate. Once the plan is approved and it's filed with the the right with the right authorities. The engineer, if the engineer must deviate from the plan, he has to justify it. Not for us. We can come here and go completely off from that planet. The point is to become good, to be better, not to follow a plan. Because if we were just following plans, we would be automatons, and that plenitude that we would supposedly conquer would not be ours. It would be somebody else's, the one that designed the plan for us. There is no plan. We can use the word plan. I'm not abhorring the word. I'm not condemning the word. What I want to convey is that the meaning, the strength that we give to the word plan is not that which we normally give to a house plan, to a building plan, even a career plan. Sometimes for career plans, we can be very, very strict. Not here. We sketch some life. We give it to our mentors up there. They say, well, this is within your capabilities. But if when you come back here, you decide to go in another direction, they will still assist you. They will still help you. There is no such a plan that expects from the Creator that He would put a person in our path only to shoot us, to stab us, to rob us. Those are our decisions. Nobody else's. To blame the Creator is blasphemy, is heresy. And in Spiritism, we would say, is a complete lack of understanding. I really, really like these questions because it gives us the opportunity to review these concepts, the importance of them, and to situate the word plan in a different connotation when it comes to reincarnation. And I think by now it comes quite naturally that there is no determinism. Why would God, being perfect, whose justice is perfect, so perfect that is beyond our understanding, why would God put an individual in our path, like I said before, with the sole purpose of creating so much misery? And we're going to come back to this later when we evaluate things that are about wars, which was another question that was received. Like I said, if you want to add something, you want to ask something else, please interrupt me at this stage of the talk. It may sound, even look very odd to put abortion or a spontaneous abortion next to a mass shooting. Okay? But it's actually because in my classification system, I'm talking about the return, okay, and the coming. So it's coming from the physical realm and also returning to the physical realm. So these two are related in the sense that someone is trying to come to the physical realm and is going to go back to the spiritual realm. All right? So the point here that I want to make about spontaneous, the key word there is spontaneous abortion. One of the most beautiful actions that a woman or that a spirit in now occupying a human body can do is offer one of our brothers and sisters the opportunity of both an anemic shock and the regressive stage that the spirit must go through when it's coming back to the physical realm. There are brothers and sisters by the thousands in the spirituality that are in so much need of this opportunity, and only this opportunity can assist them because they are so ingrained. It's so ingrained in them, the hatred from a past life, from something that happened. I'm not talking about with the mother directly or the father or anyone in the family. Sometimes they need, in this case, a complete stranger that will accept that individual, that spirit, knowingly. All of this, because all of these things are discussed in the spiritual realm. And that father, that mother, but particularly the mother, will be aware somehow that that is going to be a short pregnancy. When that individual, that mother, comes back from the dream state to the conscious world here, because the mother is here, right? The mother may not be able to transfer all that information to her physical brain, might not remember that. But that person has served a wonderful purpose. Never forget. And this is why Jesus said, honor your father and your mother. God give us the opportunity to reincarnate. But the ones that actually make it so are our mothers and fathers, or our parents, I should say. Never ever forget that. No matter how horrible a parent can be, it's not for us to judge. Because you have to remember that if you have to come back here, God may have given you the permission, even the opportunity. But the opportunity was put into practice by a couple, by a father and a mother. So in this particular case, when these things happen, there are many, many things that medical science will give as an excuse, a justification, an explanation, and they may all be correct biologically speaking, but they do not address that which is attached to that biology, the essence. In this case, I can even say the spirit, because there is also a perispirit there. We have to remember these things. Is there a spirit attached already? Here, I'll be honest with you, there is a huge controversy on this, because some groups say that no, it's only when there is full implantation of the fetus in the womb. Some say no, it's from the very beginning. Now I'm going to give you my opinion. You can have your own, and you can think about it. I believe that God is not human in the same way that we are not humans. We have a human body when we are here reincarnated. We are not humans. We are essences. Each one of us is an essence. And right now, we are using a human mold to be here. We're not humans. God is not human in the sense that God is not imperfect, is not full of flaws. It's perfect, it's flawless. God would never do something in one case, something in another. There is a partiality in that. I believe for this to have a purpose, that there has to be an attachment of that spirit from the very first moment, from the very first cell when it's put together by the two gametes, one from the male and one from the female. Because otherwise, this particular question would have no sense, and worse, it would have no answer. And not having an answer drives us to insanity. If reincarnation is supposed to be a process, it has to be a process throughout. We cannot start saying, oh, here there is reincarnation, here, oh, I don't like this one, so there is no reincarnation there, and so on and so forth. It either is or it isn't. A spirit is attached to that cell or not. We cannot start putting time, because we are timeless as essences. When that spirit that was in that associated to that fetus has its fetal life cut short, it returns to spirituality. Individuals or spirits under these conditions that go through this process, again, remember we are speaking of spontaneity. spontaneous abortions, not provoked ones. These spirits, when they return, these are perturbed spirits. They are brothers and sisters of ours who are in great need. So they return not in a fetal stage, not in a baby stage, nothing like that. They return to their past life, but they now have had the anemic shock. They have also had the regression that the spirit goes through. They have learned something. They are no longer as perturbed, or maybe they are no longer as enraged. They have gained something. So the return here is much more to something that that spirit used to be, because the spirit did not stay in the flesh too long to become acquainted with a new mold. If I return to the physical realm today, to the spiritual realm today, I will remember, because I have more than half a century with this form. And I can even choose to remember this one, or even remember a previous one, or even remember myself a little younger, or this age. It doesn't matter. But I can choose, because I have an understanding already, a tiny, minuscule, almost ridiculous understanding, but we all do. And I hope that I'm not in such a bad shape in terms of perturbation that I will come back and still continue to be that perturbed. I have flaws, yes, but not perturbations that are so intense, like individuals who are in this situation. And this is why it may sound a little strange to say, but a woman that goes through something like this, yes, it's traumatic, but there is a congratulatory note. It's not only because of the difficulty, but because there was an assistance to a brother or sister in direst need. And we have to remember that. Here in the physical plane, we only see the tragedy. But in the spiritual plane, they have a much better vision of it, especially the mentors. We have addressed that one as well, right? So are there any questions? Yes, please, Janet.
I don't know what is going to be, pertinent to that, but when you have a not abortion, but you have a miscarriage that make that mutilate mutilate
Okay.
yourself. What what is the situation? The the fetus has to be take it take your before the time for some reason, and it's a kind of not abortion, but it's a kind of I
You're,
don't know.
you're saying that it's an induced abortion because there's a medical condition for
Some
the woman, for instance,
yes. It's,
or yeah,
sometimes they grow up in the place not supposed to grow, and
mm-hmm.
things like
Like
that.
an ectopic pregnancy. Yes, it's the same principle. They know much more than we do. They have an idea all that is going to happen, because perhaps this ectopic pregnancy is already happening because of the state of mind of that spirit that is about to reincarnate. It's an essence that is perturbed. When that essence is perturbed, it molds for itself as a perispirit or spiritual body that is full of flaws. And because that perispiritual body serves as a mold for the physical one later on, you carry out like a domino effect. All the rage, perhaps, or all the anger, or all the traumas that are there in the essence, because it's the essence that carries everything. It will go all the way down to that physicality. And that physicality, perhaps, will not be viable, as in medical terms we say. And it's not viable, but that short period, that brief moment that was here in the womb, that had to go through the regression phase of the perispirit, of the spiritual body, also the anemic shock of coming back to the flesh, that is enough, perhaps, to give it a jolt. Like when something happens and you're so distressed that you kind of in a panic and someone slap you and say, come back, come back. It's something like that, but a much deeper level. And of course, nobody has to slap you silly for that to happen. But it is a very traumatic event for the spirit. But it's a good trauma. It's a trauma that will pull that spirit sometimes from centuries, decades, centuries even of always thinking in the same way with a mono idea, for instance. You won't see something like this, of course, if it is already a spirit that has some understanding. We all have flaws. We are all here, but we are in principle not perturbed to this level that we need this type of mechanism. But it's part of the universal laws. Kirsten?
Yes, Julia, I have a follow-up question, or not follow-up question. I have an additional question. So we can see culturally, maybe it's across the globe, women, I guess, or couples that honor or remember the death of, their miscarried child at whatever stage it was miscarried in. Is that wrong? I mean, listening to what you just said in the context of what you just said, we don't know. On one hand, the spirit could have been a suffering spirit. Is it wrong for the couple or the mother to want to memorialize that death?
It is never wrong when it's based on love. It's an act of love. As long as it doesn't derange into some form of paranoia or obsessive behavior. Here, obsessive not as obsession, spiritually speaking, but as a psychiatric condition. Okay? Well, I think Kirsten is asking us just mourning that individual, honoring the memory of that individual, whether it became a full body human being or not. And for that, how is it possible that you can honor something? It's only if your essence, in one way or another, respected it. It's only if you as the person who lost it, had a memory, not a memory of someone growing up or someone walking or saying this or saying, no, but in the sense of all of that process, which is a beautiful process if we think about it. This is how we come to life. Like I said before, God gives us the opportunity, but if it's just that, we will never be here having this conversation. We would all be in the spiritual realm. We need mom and dad. No matter how bad they can be as parents. That's a different issue. That's a social issue. That it's so many other things. But at that moment, the moment of conception, we need mom and dad. So if mom and dad now honors that, it was an act of love and continues to be an act of love. We never go wrong, we never go astray when we love. May I move on? Thank you. So this is just to reiterate. For both ideas, there is no determinism. There is no fatalism either. Well, if there is no determinism, you can't even go to fatalism, right? We need to move from this concept here of a plan, detailed, like a building plan, to something that looks more like scaffolding. Do you buy a scaffolding or do you buy a house or a building or an apartment in a building? This is put together so that you can build something, but you can change the facade of the building. You can put a different window, or you can put new doors in your home. I'm sorry. The scaffolding is actually there to assist you to build something. That's all. Oh, and I just lost my video. What happened here? We are back, like a bad penny, or like the Terminator. My goodness. So, for this next round, we are going to see how badly we handle these two topics, fanaticism and cynicism. We tend to either be very cynical or very fanatical. And actually, we should do exactly what this little guy is doing. Just state it right there in the midpoint, not to one side or the other. So these are the questions that we received. Okay. And I've divided again in two blocks, and we'll start with the first block. So, why does it seem most people follow or prefer leaders who are immoral instead of the moral ones? There is a law in chemistry that says like dissolves like. In this case, it's like attracts like. All right? When we say, oh, this person is corrupt, this is that, and the person continues to be associated with that individual, what is it telling us? It's telling us that the two think alike. Because when you don't like something, you move away from it. You do. You do. Life is not a concentration camp. It's a very special situation. Life have some level of intelligence already developed, which then gives us some level of responsibility through over our actions, and at the same time some level of free will. We don't have, again, free will. We are developing it, but we have some inkling of it that should be enough to tell us, okay, I'm going to move away from that individual. Sometimes this moving away, this decision, comes at a very high cost. It can be your job. It can be the place where you live. You have to move to a different city. But here's the thing. We even have that expression. Oh, I will not move. I will remain here because this is the devil I know. You are already telling us it's the devil. And yet, you decide to be its concubine. So, who is to blame? No one. Not even, much less the less so the devil. Okay, so this idea that happens when we see leaders, the leader can be the boss, the leader can be a teacher, the leader can be even a person in the family that has a little more leeway with everyone because it's like more matriarchal, more patriarchal. But it doesn't matter what leader is in this case. The point is that we are following that individual. And then we have nothing to talk about. So I put a few quotes there for each one of these things, okay, in the sense of for us to understand. And in this one, just briefly, We see what is in somebody else's eye or eyes, but we don't see what is in ours. That is a hypocritical behavior. So I look at that leader and I say that leader is corrupt. Oh, that leader is dishonest. That leader is does this, that, and the other. But I continue to follow that individual. I continue to be associated to that individual. So then I know I'm no better. That's what I'm saying. I'm not worse necessarily, but I'm no better. And that's what we have to understand. Jesus came to us, gave us the examples of life. He did not preach. He did not open a university. He did not have an online course. He did not sell the information that he brought to us. He showed that to us. Showed. And even when he was tempted, that they came to him to tempt him with the coin, he took the coin and said, which face do you see here? Caesar's? Therefore, he render unto Caesar's that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's. He made it very clear. You want to follow God? You follow God. But if you want to stay here, you cannot do two things at the same time. To quote one of the chapters in the Gospel according to Spiritism, you cannot follow both God and Mammon. There it is. We are trying to follow two different things. We complain about the leader, but we are trying to do the exact same thing. So, it's a wake-up call for us. We have influencers today. It's a good word, actually. I love these questions. We have so many people that influence us, some in a good way. Those are the ones we admire. Those are the ones we respect. But we also have a lot of individuals who are just dragging multitudes, a lot of people to the wrong path, down the wrong path. Well, the first thing is be very careful what we do, because we will have to answer for everything. And Jesus said, it is necessary that a scandal be brought forth, because we are still flawed. We are incomplete. Our essence is still not complete, not happy. It's still learning. However, Jesus said, woe to those for whom the scandal comes. So we have to be very careful not to be the cause of a scandal. We can be involved in the scandal, but let's not be the cause of it. So we have to be very careful of not being a bad influencer. Actually, the word influencer is already owning the negative connotation, so I just say influencers. The ones we like, we'll call them, good leaders and so on. So if we can be a teacher, it can be a parent, it can be a boss, it can be a governor, a mayor, it doesn't matter. It has to be someone who has under his or her umbrella a lot of individuals and maybe leading all of them astray. And let us think one other thing about this. Look, the last quote. Test that the spirits come and are of the Lord. Because there are many false Christs, many false prophets. We have a brain not to put outside with the car. We don't even crack a window open but when we leave our brains outside in this heat. We have to take our brains out of neutral. We cannot leave our brains in the parking lot. We have to take our brains with us everywhere we go. And we have to have it in full gear all the time. Someone says something to you, evaluate. Judge. I'm going to ask you to accept this word. Judge. There's nothing wrong with the word judge, to evaluate, to assess, to appraise. We can use the word judge as long as we are not judgmental, as long as we don't not bias. To judge means to evaluate. to criticize in a good sense so that we can understand what is happening to us or what someone said to us. So do that. And if you're not capable, because sometimes, one of these influences can be very, very good, at bamboozling us, ask somebody else, someone whose trust you have already earned, and they have also earned yours. Okay? It's up to us. If we, using whatever free will we have developed, decide to leave our brain in neutral, we cannot complain about it later on. The fanaticism and the cynicism they end up on the same side of the seesaw in this particular case, in case of wars. So what are the causes of such atrocities? How is it possible today, in this century, in this millennium, that we're still having these types of conflicts, this type of approach to solving a conflict? Very simple. Greed, lack of love, lack of understanding, but especially pride and greed that push fanaticism and cynicism both to one side of that seesaw, and then the seesaw just tips over to that side completely. And there is no amount of effort for you to kind of counteract that. So Jesus told us, beware of your greed. You will pay for it, as we pay for everything. This is not a threat. This is the law of cause and consequence in action. He made a statement, not a threat. He's just saying, today you may be in a position that is advantageous and you'll be creating these issues to others. Tomorrow, you might find yourself in the opposite field, and you'll be suffering that which you cause others to suffer today. How many times we explode, we react when we could have just counted unto 1,000, 1,000,000 before addressing a situation? Do you think it's any different with the leaders of large nations and large peoples? It's the same thing. And sometimes, how many times we have engineered someone's fall, or at least someone's demise, or at least something to hurt someone. We do. We are still doing it. So think of that now done by a representative of a nation. There's nothing different there. It is our greed, it's our pride, it's our lack of understanding and love. Do we have any responsibility in such processes? Yes. We have a responsibility about everything on this planet. Everything. Now, the difference here is how much. If someone goes over there, shoots another person, stabs another person, robs a bank, do I have a responsibility? Not directly. I did not pull the trigger. I did not stab the individual. I did not get the money from the bank. It's not that. But we are living in society, and perhaps our actions, collectively speaking, and thinking only of one reincarnation process, we have driven that individual to such a desperation to bring that about us. We have to understand, for instance, that we cannot have a pocket of poverty someplace else in the world and say, well, okay, we'll just keep it contained over there, and we'll be happy here in our mansions, in our huge cars, and guzzling down gas and this. No, we need to make everyone feel welcome, to make everyone feel part of this world. It is difficult. We are still learning, and there's still going to be a lot of centuries before you reach anything that is acceptable. But it is in this sense that we have a responsibility. We also have responsibilities, for instance, When we think about it this way, we produce something on the other side of the world. Then we ship that thing from the other side of the world. It doesn't matter where, okay? All the way here to our locality. And it's cheaper than paying someone here to do it for us. The only reason that is cheaper is because someone is being exploited on that side. So when we buy that product because it's cheaper, you might say, oh, but that's the only thing I can afford. Okay. But you are setting in motion and sustaining this type of machinery. Because if human beings are the same everywhere, the price should be the same or roughly the same when we do things like that. So we have, when we save our plastic, all our plastics, and then we put those plastics into a container, into a bin, and then someone comes up, picks up that container, and now they put in a ship, and then sends to one of those poor countries in Southeast Asia, so that they can dump in their rivers, in their ocean shorelines, and so on. We are not saving plastic. We are not recycling. It's a myth. We are just moving the problem someplace else. So we have a responsibility. Wars, of course, are a little more complicated because you might have someone that takes power and then starts the whole process. But one day, society will be able to address these issues because the majority of us would not be turning a blind eye to the situation. We, in a way, in many cases, turn a blind eye to these things. There is a moral cowardice behind it. You see some companies, for instance, boycotting countries that start a war, but others continue to sell. Companies big enough that they could take a little tumble by not selling to that country, but they do not adhere to the embargo. And sometimes we do the same thing. Oh, I want that product because I have always eaten that or I always bought that. And so we contribute. We contribute when we are silent about it. I'm not saying we have to take refugees. I'm not saying we have to go on walks and on protests. It's not that. There are many different things that we can do, tiny little things. But as a rule, if it is not in our backyard, we don't care about it. How many wars have we seen, not directly, on television in the past 3 or 4 decades? They were not here. They were not here. And then when something happens in our locality, then everybody gets all crazy and all piled up. True, it's needed, but it is, in a way, in some ways, a little bit of an overreaction, because when there was a war someplace else, we never said anything. So we do have a responsibility, all of us. We are linked in this world. It is not possible. And if you think that you are in a cozy situation, fine. Next reincarnation, you might show up over there trying to rebuild that. Whatever there is, and whatever that is. And then you won't like it. You won't like it at all. We need to stop having these having the possibilities of such individuals to take power at this level and decree by their own whim so much disaster, so much destruction. So it's in this sense that I mentioned just now that we can contribute to these situations. When we turn a blind eye, when we say, I don't care, I have to go to work tomorrow. It's not important. It's all the way around across the world. I don't know anyone from that area and this and that. And it doesn't matter where that thing is happening or even how it is started. Because in a war, the weak always lose. There's no such a thing as a weak winning. We have to get out of this position of moral cowardice. We cannot bury our head in the sand and pretend it's not there. It is there. It is happening. And one day, perhaps, it can grow so much that it will affect us as well. Or, like I said, because we do believe in reincarnation, we might find ourselves in that situation in our next one, rebuilding the place or just suffering all from all the ravages and the inconsistencies of such an absolute pathological mind state. So these are just two quotes that I put there. These are from the Gospel and the Book of Hope as well. As I mentioned too, I took a few things from the Book of Hope, and some of them I just translated to put up here. But most of these quotes are actually from the Gospel. Let us look at another set of questions. So here we have our physical surroundings. So the war could be here as well, right? Now, how may Spiritism open our hearts through self-analysis and introspection or introspection? Well, you see what this thing is doing? It's carving its own statue. It's carving itself. That is one of the most beautiful metaphors that we have in Spiritism. We are the craftspeople of our own perfection. We're the craftsmen, the craftswoman of our own perfection. Actually, we should say we're the craft spirit of our own perfection, because it's not the human body that crafts it. It's the spirit. Actually, it's not even the spirit. If we look at it, it is the essence, because it's the only thing that can remember, that can feel, that can remember, that can feel, and so on and so forth. So we are the ones putting together what we will become tomorrow. Nobody else. No plan. No determinism. We may have assistance from our mentors, but assistance does not mean that the professor is doing the homework for the student. The professor says, perhaps you should go down this avenue or that avenue, but it's the student that still has to do the homework. We are the ones chiseling out the imperfections of our own marbles so that one day we'll become a beautiful statue, metaphorically speaking, that one day we'll reach our plenitude. Very long one. The gist of it is, it's a good question as well. We're talking about embracing materialism. We threw away everything that we had. We never paid attention that we were abandoning God, we're abandoning our religiosity, our religion, our rituals. We threw away everything once we embraced materialism. But then we realized, whoops, it didn't solve anything. I didn't gain anything from it. So now I am completely alone. Even my thoughts are empty because I have no faith. It doesn't matter faith in what, I have no faith. The faith that I had was on something that was purchasable. But I could not maintain it, or even if I could maintain it, it never brought me happiness. It never fulfilled me as a person, as an individual. Is it possible that this is the cause of so much aggravation today? Yes, to a certain degree. I would say to a certain degree because not everyone is necessarily a materialistic individual. Here, materialism, I believe, was meant more towards consumerism. Because a materialistic person can still be an ethical individual. As difficult as it is for us to wrap our brains around it, a materialistic individual is just one that has no belief in God or no belief in spirituality. Is the opposite of spirituality. It's the here and now period. Comes here by an accident of chemistry and biology, and goes away from here also as an accident of chemistry and biology. Okay. But during the stay, the person may be quite ethical. You might say, how? What incentive does that individual have to be ethical if he or she knows that it's going to end? I don't know. We have to ask one of them, or we have to ask ourselves. But the point is, it is possible. It's not out of this world. So I believe here that the idea of materialism is more of a consumerism, a person that consumes in order to fulfill a gap. We have to remember that our society today is a chronically dissatisfied society. Two words, chronically dissatisfied. We feel lack of satisfaction, dissatisfaction, chronically. It means today, tomorrow, every single time. Even within the same day, if we do 10 times the same action, we still feel that we have not accomplished enough. We haven't bought enough. We haven't purchased enough. We haven't gotten enough degrees or enough merit or enough this or enough that. It's everything by numbers, by large numbers, because we collect things willy-nilly without giving them meaning. Is the chronic dissatisfaction. So, can we address this? Yes. We have to have some spirituality. It doesn't have to be Spiritism. Spiritism is a tool. It's a tool. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Some people are not very good with screwdrivers, but are great with a hammer or with a Phillips tool. For us, we opted for Spiritism. So perhaps because we find it useful. It really doesn't matter, but we need some spiritualization. We need to have some belief. It is important. It is very important. Without it, we are going to be chronically dissatisfied for the rest of this miserable existence. And the worst part is that if we truly believe in materialism, we'll be very surprised, at least for us that believe in Spiritism now, to find ourselves on the other side feeling the same pains and pangs that we felt here by not having anything to fulfill us. Why is there such an intense sense of group identification, but not so much self-understanding, self-identification? Here I must apologize to our benefactress, Joanna G. Angelis, because I have figures for almost all the other questions or some animation. And here I have nothing, because it's very hard to find figures to describe this. But this is her life's work. All the books of the psychology collection are going to address exactly this. There is a lot of answers for this, or I should say not answers, but there is a large number of causes for this. For instance, moral cowardice. Why is that? When I am in a group, I go with the flow, but I can disguise myself in the crowd. So if the crowd does something that is illegal, immoral, amoral, if the crowd does something that is vile, I can tell other people, oh, I don't agree with that, but I'm still there. And as long as nobody sees me in the crowd, I can disguise myself, I can hide in that crowd, I'm good. Sometimes the crowd does something good, positive, but I am there, but I have not contributed to it. So I'm part of the group that receives the benefits, but I have never moved a finger to actually, deserve that benefit. So the crowd, the group, has this, the moral cowardice component. We can hide in it. Hide in terms of bad things, and even hide in terms of receiving good things. The crowd has also the number. There is always strength in numbers. So even when I am active, whether it's for the good or the bad, it doesn't really matter. It is always a form of imposing my way of thinking, because now I'm not my own voice, but the voice of many. Remember what it was said, right, about the spirits that were against God. We are legions, right? They knew that one would not make a dent. They will still not make a dent in universal love, but they at least can try when they are legions. And they do succeed sometimes if we are not careful, if we drop our vigilance. As the Master said, pray and be vigilant. What is the responsibility of a spiritist in the propagation of the idea of eternity? And if any, how should it be done? Quickest answer I can give to you: none. Because it's buried in it a concept of the sandwich man. Who said that our doctrine is the best one? Who said that our doctrine fits every case, every issue out there? Who said our doctrine is the one that was sanctioned by God itself? And no other doctrine, no other philosophical belief or creed is going to. No, like I said, it is a tool. It's a wonderful tool. I use it, or I try to use it. I try to learn, because it really fulfills me. Even in my stage of ridiculous progress, it fulfills me. But not everyone will benefit from it. You cannot take a person who's been a Buddhist, for instance, a Taoist, for generations, and just to force in that individual all the concepts we have from Spiritism. That person will not understand right away. That person has to come to Spiritism in his or her own way. So, this is what I want. This is what I want to convey to you. In this sense, none. We don't have any responsibility. It is not for us to go out there and start, a war. Haven't we had enough during the Crusades? Haven't we had enough killings during the Huguenots, Catholics in France? Haven't we had enough in between the Turks and the Greeks? Again, and also between the Arabs, different factions, even in India, also with different factions in Hinduism. Why? You want to be good to Spiritism? You want to advertise Spiritism? What was the greatest advertiser we had? The example, Jesus. Jesus did not make propaganda. Jesus did not advertise. There was no TV, no radio, no online, pop-ups or anything. Jesus lived it. You want people in your office to come and ask you, are you a spiritist? Or do you believe in something? Behave like one. They will notice. Believe me. When they see that you, like everybody else in that office, suffers, has problems, that you also have setbacks, curveballs in life, but you always keep your calm. You suffer, you cry sometimes. It's not bad, but you keep your calm. You don't go and you snap at people, or you don't even do something crazy. They will notice that you have something that they lack. Believe me, humans love things that work. They will come to you and they will ask you, do you believe in something special? Could you tell me? They still might not adhere to it. They might still not become an adept. Who cares? But you, then and there, proved that what you believe in is worth the attention. You are not going to make it worth their attention by advertising like a sandwich man, or by leaving books, in a subway, or by no. It's through conversations, it's through study, and primarily through your examples in life. Because that is the only thing that is foolproof. They will see it in action. Because in theory, everything works. In theory, we would be colonizing Mars by now. Okay? Look at where we are. We are doing great, but not what we wanted to. So it's the same thing. In practice, things are different. So if you put it in practice and it's successful, believe me, people will notice. As they notice anything, it doesn't have to be spiritist. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be spiritualizing. They will notice anything. If you do something in the office that is easier and it accomplishes the same goals, everyone notices and will start imitating you because nobody likes to waste time. People like to be successful. It's part of being human. We strive for perfection. That perfection is the plenitude that we will reach one day. Be a spiritist. Do not try to have things for spiritism. They will not work. And even if they apparently work, it will be hypocritical. It will be just on the surface. And as Emmanuel has a beautiful chapter in that book, the Book of Hope, there is form and substance. And he says, form it doesn't last. But substance is forever. Not diamonds. Substance is forever. So you want to be a good representative of Spiritism? Be a Spiritist. But don't take my words as recrimination for the question. I like the question. And it's important that we have these questions so that we can discuss this here, because if all of you already know that, perhaps the person that is not here today for one reason or another, or even our colleagues on online and our brothers and sisters up there, they may be benefiting from it. We're getting to the last category. How do we address in Spiritism the adage, bad things always happen to good people? Well, let us look at this question in different ways. Statistically speaking, have you ever heard of a statistics of 1 point? It doesn't work. There is no such a thing. Statistics is a part of the mathematical sciences that deals with populations, with big groups. And when you have a smaller group, it tries to predict, in a way, the behavior of the larger group based on just that little group that you have. Like, for instance, when there is an election, you cannot poll all the electorate. You cannot poll all the members, all the individuals in society that can actually vote. So what do? You poll a small number of them, and if you do it right, that small number will become representative of the whole, and you can make a prediction. And we know how these predictions work, right? Statistics is still it's an exact sciences, but it still has some difficulties making this extrapolation from the small group to the large group. It's inherent to the technique. It's not that people do a bad job. On the contrary, it's a very difficult job. So when we say something like this, bad things always happen to good people. How many bad people do you know? How many good people do you know? And by the way, are you God? Are you really seeing what they are doing when you are not around? Because we are only ethical when there is a camera around us or someone to denounce us. Most of us will actually fail the honesty test or the ethical test when we are not being observed, or at least we think we are not being observed. So it is very hard. Now, we like to say this, especially if it's someone who's has passed away, in the sense that we want to address that individual and say, oh, that was a good person. In that sense, yeah, we can say this just as a form of compliment, but we really don't know these things. So there is no such a thing. Because if this were true, God would be not only partial, but unfair. And then our whole building that requires God to be perfect in everything, including love, justice, honesty, ethics, that part would not be fulfilled. This is one of the best ones in my book, because not because of the question necessarily, but the answer. Because I think you'll agree with me, where at least if you don't think of the best one, at least you'll think one of the top ones. I don't know you very well, but I know one thing about each and every one of you with absolute certainty. I know what you want from life. Oh, no, I'm not God, and I don't pretend to be. Humans, or let's put it this way, essences with a human body, associated with a human body, do you know what we want from life? It doesn't matter if we're good or bad. We want to be remembered. All of us. Think about when someone doesn't remember your name and you see that they don't make an, not because the person is becoming senile or has Alzheimer's or some other, or even difficulty remembering faces or anything, but the person doesn't make an effort. You can clearly see it is the most injury that that person can actually make. It hurts deep inside, all the way down. We want to be remembered. Hell is paved with spirits that want us to remember them. What good is it for me to injure you if you just miss my injury? Right? I want you to remember how I injured you. I want you to remember how I mistreated you, how much I made you embarrassed, in front of this person or that person. I want you to remember the suffering that I caused. Otherwise, all my effort was just for nothing. So even the bad ones want to be remembered. Even evil spirits, in the sense of temporary evil, because we know evil is not forever. But even when we are in the worst possible behavior of ourselves, we want to be remembered. So when you have someone who's about to pass away, if I am in that bed, do not come to me with platitudes. I will ask the orderly to escort you out of the room. Talk to me. Tell me how your day was. Because if you talk to me, you're giving me attention. And I will know that you want to be there with me. You don't want others to see you being there with me. And I know that you will remember that. You remember that you told me something, funny. And because I had some form of operation, I couldn't laugh. And then I was all in pain because I started laughing because it was funny. And I will remember that even if I pass away and I go back to the spiritual realm. I'm in a coma. Wipe out the drool from my mouth because my spirit is seeing what you're doing. Talk to me. Who cares that I don't answer? Nobody's saying that it has to be a dialogue. It's what I call a monologue of two. As a joke. Right? So we want to be remembered. So don't come in with platitudes and all these constructed phrases. They are just annoying and they just remind that individual of the suffering that he or she is going through. See that individual not as a suffering human being at that moment because it's still reincarnated. See that individual as a person with likes, dislikes. Disagree with the person, even if the person is in bed, because the person will be felt like a human being, not a carcass that is just about to expire. This is important. And behind all of this is love. Only love can do that. Only love. And this is why we have this beautiful quote that I can do charity, that I can speak good words, that I can be nice to my neighbors. But if I am without love, all my efforts are in vain because they are just form, not substance. They do not come from the heart. They come from a social contract, a social convention. The person is sick. I should not, upset I should not say this. I should not annoy. I should agree with everything, even if it's the most outrageous thing. These are social conventions. Of course, I'm not asking you to engage the person in a political debate. It's not that. But you get my point. You're not going to. You're not going to. You're not going to be false, to be a hypocrite to that individual. That individual wants to be remembered. That individual wants to say, when he or she goes back to the spiritual realm, I left someone who cared for me behind. That person aches, longs for my presence. Because I remember she came over to talk to me, came over to change the bed linens for me, so on and so forth. We have to live well with people around us while they are still around. You can't build them a mausoleum after they pass away. That won't do. That is just your guilt manifesting itself. Live with those around you with love all the time. Which words of hope would you offer people who think this is the end of it all? Of all the quotes from the gospel, my favorite. I am the greatest, that the greatest is not even the great physician of souls. Come to me, all of you who ache, who suffer, who is in pain, and I will provide you with the remedy that you need. The only one that will cure your ailments. Because the world is not capable of providing what you need. Only I can do that. And I will only come to you if you ask. Because I will not intrude on your own path to perfection. But if you do ask, I will come. And I will say to you when I knock at your door, here I am. I have come because you have asked for me. There's nothing more beautiful than that. And that is from the Spirit of Truth. And it's in our gospel, gospel according to Spiritism. The words of our Master, Jesus Christ. So, I think you have a good idea now that what is important in life for us is love. Not the love that is equated to lust or even the love for a small thing. No, this universal love, this love that cares for something. The love that rekindles in our hearts the flame of hope. Because that's all we have. That is all we have. Without hope, we are a biological carcass running chemical reactions. Nothing more. If you want to destroy someone, you don't need to make them lose money, position, power. All you do is remove hope from them. And what you have at the end is nothing. It's a useless aggregation, or aggregate, I should say, of atoms with biological functions, nothing more. Because you have destroyed the person all the way down to the essence, the one that smiles or makes smiles happen, the one that laughs, the one that cries, the one that enjoys, the one that even feels hatred, because it's all part of our life right now. One day we will no longer need to feel hatred. We will be beyond that. Right now it's part of it. As long as we don't allow it to take control, like in wars, in assassination, in disrespect towards others, in misleading others, like the influencers. Hope is everything. And hope is that flame that is put together, rekindled, maintained, always bright by love. Thank you.
Wow, Julio. No words. Thank you so much. I think we're going to not go to a Q&A because this kind of was the whole Q&A. um, I'm speechless. I don't have words. Don't have words. Um, but gratitude. I think I echo the sentiments of many, if not all. This was very enlightening, and we are humbled and grateful for this evening, however trying and challenging it was, in a sense. Well, friends, in lieu of doing our normal passes, for various reasons, we're just going to do a spiritual passes. Okay, we're going to dim the lights, turn on some music. Let us just get into a comfortable position as we wait for the music to be played. Let us lift up our hearts and our minds to our divine creator with immense gratitude, not only for the spirit benefactors, not only for our speaker this evening and all the good and noble guides, but for all of you who persevered to be here, for all of us who have ears to hear and are ready to change. Let us just take in this moment. Let us take in this moment of blessings from the higher spirituality, reminding us of the one of the things in this world or universe as we know it that helps us to keep moving despite our difficulties is the hope and the faith that we have. Let us feel and imagine these healing vibrations pouring over us and embracing us, bringing us healing and balance, renewal. As we allow these heavenly vibrations to pour over each one of us, aiding each one of us individually in the ways we need it the most. Let us also feel this loving embrace from our spirit mentors and our Creator. Embracing us now, reminding us that we are children of God. And with these thoughts and gratitude, we thank you. And remembering the Master in our hearts, the great physician, may each one of us seek to emulate and live all the good virtues and the examples that we have learned thus far in our lives. We thank you, and so be it.